Good evening. I'm Paul Lebovitz, and I was asked by the owner to help usher his project to the Envision concept change. And I thank you for signing on to the dialogue tonight. We typically don't wait for questions till the end, but Ms. Wade, right now, you're the only one on, and we don't have anyone in City Hall. So I want you to feel free to interrupt and say, I'd like to ask a question now. Did you hear what I said? Oh,
Yeah, there's other people on there.
okay. Well, if there's anybody else as well, I'm sorry, I can't spot them on the screen. So what's the purpose of this meeting? It's a time for us to tell you that what the owner's thinking about in an opportunity to try to do something different with his property. And this is a direct dialogue with y'all. You can talk tonight and feel free if you got a letter from me or you want to call City Hall to comment on this project. We welcome questions, comments, anything that'll help make this better. This is not a zoning meeting or a rezoning meeting. In Franklin, you have two layers you go through to make changes. The first one is a land use concept and envision, and that's the only process we're going through right now. The zoning would come later, and the zoning would set uses and setbacks. What we're going for in a land use concept is to open up a couple of possibilities on the property at 532 Franklin Road. I'm going to move to the next slide.
One thing, there could be people who try and join the meeting. So I don't know if you started your waiting room. We did it. You did or no?
Okay.
Is Beth still there? I feel like.
Yeah, she's here. It says to save questions for later, but please just go ahead. And you can interrupt me and comment on something that might be fresher on your mind at that time.
Sounds good.
Envision Franklin provides guidance on future development. It determines some possible land uses and site design. And it was adopted, 3 years ago now? I think it's about three or 4 years ago, and was just updated in this past year. And the document is online. You can go to the City of Franklin, go to the planning site, and you'll see a pull down that's called Envision right there. Look to the right, there'll be a highlighted, the top sentence is there's a highlighted Envision. It's in blue, and that's how you get to the Envision document, which is, I don't know, 75 pages long at least, could be 80. So this is a slide showing you some dates. After tonight's meeting, December 2nd, the city staff makes recommendations back to me and the owner. And then on December 10th, there's a formal meeting. If the plan amendment is adopted, it can just stay the way it is. And what happens is the zoning right now is, if you looked at that part, it's a large lot residential. And so even if we change the overlay tonight, nothing really changes on the property until there is a rezoning. And that may be a difficult concept to understand, but just keep in mind there's two layers to do development process here in Franklin. What you have in front of you is the difference between what's current and then what's proposed. So right now, the property is limited to large lot residential, and Envision, it says it's usually 1 acre. The zoning is also R1, which is a large lot. So this property right now can only be residential and one house. This present zoning, as well as the Envision, it's aimed towards large lot subdivisions with deep setbacks. Excuse me. The property right now can be a residence, or it could be what we call live work. You could live in the house and take a bedroom and have an office there. The proposed is office residential, and this is a transitional concept, so that the only thing that could be built there was 2 stories at the most. It would have to look like a house, as if you move down the road and you're moving towards residential. The parking is required to be on the backside. You wouldn't be seeing a big parking lot. Architecture is going to resemble a house, and the new building will have to have landscape requirements and new setbacks. All these set by the City of Franklin. And that part, that last one, will all be set by zoning. The process now is just to change the concept of what can be there. This is a aerial photo, and you can see where the site is in relation to everything within about 650 or 700 feet. Does anybody have a question or comment at this time? Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. One of the things that I was asked to do for this presentation was to do a concept plan. This is not a final site plan. It's just knowing what we know. I put a drawing together. You'll see there's 4 trees along Franklin Road. That's just to have you imagine that those are required trees. It may be 5 or 6 in the end. So this is just an example how things could go. The back of the property. And then the house has dormers and a porch as if it might be a house. There'll be stormwater treatment. Now you'll notice a kind of a green snake on the right side of your screen. That enters into some floodplain area. And so we won't be working in there. We can do some parking in there, but there's no building and we can't put our stormwater treatment in there. You'll also notice that the driveway, which is currently up to this property, is on Franklin Road. And it's parallel to Country Lane, which is a hangover from, I guess, 50 or 60 years ago. Once this project would get to, say, site planning, whenever that is, if it's 5 years, 10 years, 10 months, the driveway would be moved. So there'd be some stacking distance on Country Lane for 3 or 4 cars, and then a driveway into the back of the facility. And so this is a representative of what could happen. It could be something like this. The front of the property shows a new state right-of-way. That's really a long-range plan, and don't know if that's 3 years or 6 years or 9 years off. There are no formal plans right now, and that's an estimate of where the new state right-of-way would be if that was 4-laned. Let's see. If you have any comments or questions at this little, like I said, site plan is just a concept. We're not turning it in for construction or anything. I welcome your comments. Any comments?
Yes, I'm Greg Wade. I'm with Beth.
Okay, great.
2 or 3 slides back, you had a proposal, and I think it says something about a large commercial building or what have you. And then you kind of changed and said it's going to look like a house. So which is it?
Oh, it'll have to look like a house. I don't know if I wrote something wrong or it just didn't come across correctly. It can be no more than 2 stories, and it's going to look like a house. It's been envisioned. That's what's required.
Yeah, that's not what your slide said.
Go back on it was the proposed and current slide.
Okay, let me find it. Whoops. Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Right there where it said, uses, a building can be aimed toward transition from residential to commercial or large building.
That is I entered that wrong.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. That is confusing when you saw that. You're correct to tell me I'm wrong.
And the reason that came to our attention is we don't want any more of this stuff coming down Franklin Road that's being built. It looks like a cluster coming down the road as it is. And that was our whole point with Envision to begin with. And y'all tried to do this 2 or 3 years ago. Now you're back again. And so we have our concerns.
Sure, I understand. I think this is a different project and a different mindset. And the other attempt would have, if that had passed, you could have had a bigger building, but it turns out this site actually is fairly limited. Everything starts off as minimum 1 acre. This lot's never even been 1 acre. Then you take 26 feet off the front and floodplain off the back. The footprint just really disappears. So I came to the city and said, I'd like to take it as a office residential and add something. So somebody could build a home there. And, about 4 doors north, there's a really big home that's been built, contemporary. You'll probably watch the property built if you've been around long enough. And
Never.
they're an example of one that actually can do the transition from residential to commercial if they choose. Not a large building, but they have transition rights on that property. Anything else I can answer? You were correct. You corrected me. I'll eat it.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Okay, thank you.
Sure. And really, if you read Envision, there's 10 or 12 land use choices, and I just think this is the match here. Just that transition, you've got the churches next door and churches across the street, and just been a difficult place to get a residence in. Our staff has been to the, we walked around, they can see it's a flat site, there's hardly a tree on it, driveway in the wrong place, all those kind of things. The site does have gas there, it's got city water. That building is on a septic field. I don't know if your home is or not. I assume you're down Country Lane. And there's a sewer nearby, but actually the sewer is pretty limited. The big subdivision up the street on the left, which has all the apartments and Soprapelia, they pretty much, and then the other office building that's sitting empty, they've pretty much used up the sewer except for residential use. So we're actually, not only we have a lot size that's limited, we're limited by sewer availability. So there's no big building that could actually that could go up in the next, I don't know how long. The report, the staff will make recommendations to me, and you can see they're December 2nd on the city's website. And then there's a public meeting on December 10th that you're welcome to attend at 7 o'clock. I want you to feel free to call me personally if you want to discuss any of this and tell me your comments. And just a reminder, we're not doing any zoning. We're just trying to open it up to a slightly different building that fits sitting right off Franklin Road. Well, I've already had your comments, and I have Greg and Beth Wade. Are y'all the second house on the right? Kind of, your driveway goes down low, or do y'all live somewhere else?
We live in Highgate.
Oh, Highgate. Okay.
Now, you said this does not require a change in zoning. Is that what you said?
No, what happens is the envision part is separate from zoning. So, and I know it's hard to sort of understand the whole policy. So I'll tell you, envision's a concept for what you can do on the property. So in this particular case, the zoning is also large lot residential as well as the envision overlay. I'm gonna call it an overlay. So if we go through the first part, the zoning is still R1, which is a large lot residential, just like where you live. And that would have to be changed to accommodate someone that says, I'd like to have, let's say if the building's 2 floors, they said, I'd like to have 2 units upstairs and 3 offices downstairs. So that would take a rezoning. If someone else came in and said that I just still want to keep it as a R1 large lot residential, that's where it's at. But it's still limited by the zoning.
So you refer to it as a residential office. Would it be residential or would it be an office?
It can be both.
Or would it be just office residential? In other words, a commercial establishment that looks like a house?
Correct.
Yes, eventually, if you went through the zoning process, it could be a commercial business, but the building's going to look like a house.
Right. Okay.
So there'll be, it actually farther south there, I think it's a kind of outside your subdivision, almost right across this road, there's a large, I think it's kind of Victorian house, and sits on about 2 acres there. And so, it could look like that. It'll just look like another house when it's done. And then the parking's in the back, so you won't see a big parking lot. I know you've seen those north on Franklin Road. There's a new building that's finished with 4 layers of parking in front, 4 rows. It doesn't have the size, and it'll never be like that.
So there's a brick house there now. Will that be removed?
Yes,
That's the whole point.
it's, you know, it's off to the left. And the reason it was built there is because the original property owners behind there, they own just about everything down the street. And the father who bought the property and took care of animals, the inside of that house has another building inside. It's hard to imagine. So when you open the closet doors, you're looking at brick-o-block walls because that was originally where they stored feed and tractor items, things like that. So the brick-o-block structure is about 10 feet in from every wall, except maybe even the back wall.
Mhm. It's block.
Yeah. And then so somebody at some time laid a foundation too well, about 12 feet out from the block wall. And all of that foundation has moved around. So the house, I think, is lower by 6 inches than when it was built, and everything's askew inside. There's nothing, sadly, there's just nothing too redeeming about the inside of the house.
Mhm.
It was actually, it was a duplex for many years, and then one kitchen was taken out. I think the last 12 or 15, it's been a single unit.
Mhm.
It used to
Thank
be.
you.
Anything else I can?
And there is no sewer there, and there's no plans on stringing sewer there at all, right?
No, there's a huge sewer line behind the house. And the city even, I think the city sewer department even left a stub out. But what I was indicating is that there is limited sewer service at this time. There's enough for one residence, or if it was an office that has the same amount of sewage, it could be possibly put there.
Okay.
So you can't put a 4-story building. There's not enough sewer there. It's just going to be, at this point in time, it's a pretty limited by land for a building, limited for parking, limited by height. We're just looking for a transitional piece of property. During the 3 years, 2 or 3 years it's been for sale, there's been lots of people coming through. Majority of them wanted a small office. We made sure the others, if they wanted to use car lot or they wanted to park buses, they just said, no way. They've all been shooed off. So we've mainly had professional people that want some office space, look at the property.
Well, I mean, what you're describing, it sounds reasonable, and we always want to see the landowner maximize their property. Everybody's fear, though, is that it's always going to lead to the next thing. And the next thing you know, we've got 3-story office buildings all the way down to Legends, and that's what everybody worries about.
I understand. I didn't know this and including the owner, didn't know this till about, I'm gonna guess, just the last 2 or 3 weeks. But in the revision of Envision this past year, there's an overlay on Franklin Road that says it's on this property, so we have to get a variance and to get around it, because we don't even have there's a scenic corridor overlay with 150-foot setback from Franklin. So this property is only 200 feet deep and 26 feet at some time. So 100 would make it a useless lot, but that runs all the way down, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that correct? So you've got 150-foot setback both sides of the road. I'm actually, I don't think most residents even know it's there. If you want to see a copy of that map, it could be emailed to you.
Well, what about, would that apply to where Iron Horse was built too?
No, because it's already in, and Iron Horse actually is 150 feet back. I happened to work on that for a while, but it predates what happened in Vision in the last year. A part of that going up, it's 150 feet back from the road. The first building is.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Mr. and Ms. Wade, thank you for attending. If anybody else listening or watching, thank you for being here. And I've got my phone number on there. Feel free to give me a call if I can help you with a document or anything.
Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
All right. Have a nice evening.
You too.